All right, good afternoon. I'm Gianotti. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Earth and Environment. And these days, my work, I want to introduce you to me and also a project. But these days, my work focuses on a couple big questions about how ideas and things become objects of management, and when, how, and why policy and management strategies spread and change from place to place. And then what are the social and environmental outcomes of particular policies? So I have two projects going on. One focuses on urban climate justice. I'm not going to talk about that, but I'm going to talk about some work I do on the human and ecological politics of wildlife management in urban and suburban areas. So last year, the Boston Globe published an article celebrating what they called the new golden age of wildlife in New England. The article highlights the growing and diverse wildlife populations in states in the region, and it cites state agency wildlife managers who attribute these healthy populations to 120 years of excellent management. There are many reasons to celebrate. Wildlife are growing across the region, but the proliferation of wildlife and other non-human nature isn't always celebrated. It's not always unfolding just how managers intend, and it's not just because of good management and actions. When wildlife and human come into contact more frequently, especially in cities and suburbs, many of these thriving species can become considered pests or problems. This then can raise questions and often drives controversy about if, how, and when we actively intervene and manage our urban and suburban nature. So these challenges are amplified because our contemporary approaches to conservation and wildlife management were developed in a very different context. They were developed in rural areas, where the institutions, the values, culture, behavior, landscapes, and even the behavior of non-humans, of wildlife themselves, is very different. So for the last few years, I've been looking at debates and decisions around management of deer in Boston suburbs, also in Massachusetts and some spaces in New York. And deer are a really perfect example of both the successes and the challenges of this golden age. They were once extirpated from much of the Northeast, but they've made a remarkable comeback, particularly in a lot of suburban and urban areas where they have lots of food and they have few predators, human predators or non-human predators. But at high densities, suburban and urban deer can become a concern because of deer vehicle collisions, concerns about Lyme disease, that's complicated, browse to people's landscaping and also agriculture, and ecological impacts to forests. And so many communities consider or start hunting programs, but this creates controversy. And so this map gives a sense of what the landscape of, or what this looks like in Massachusetts. Communities in red and orange, which are concentrated in the suburbs, are those that perceive deer to be a concern. Those in red have implemented active hunting management strategies in the last decade. Those with dots debated it and then decided not to. And those in orange have taken no action. So we're trying to understand what drives this heterogeneity in the landscape, in both concern and municipal responses. And then in collaboration with wildlife ecologists and managers, we're working to understand the material outcomes on the landscape itself. So my group and I have approached this through survey of municipal officials across the state, analysis of local bylaws, and case studies to untangle some of the politics. And our collaborators are using camera traps and vegetation surveys to study the relationship between deer populations, vegetation, hunting, management strategies, and landscape features. So deer have been extensively studied. So I want to spend my last bit of time talking about what we bring new to this issue. A lot of the work on human dimensions of wildlife has focused on resident surveys, sometimes hunter surveys, where they ask questions about attitudes towards deer and attitudes towards different sorts of deer management options. This work is motivated by a broad assumption that management happens when enough residents are concerned about the problem. But our research reveals a much messier picture. We see that the politics about management reflect the entanglement of forests, ideas about forests, wildlife, animal welfare, and concerns about human health in multiple different ways, as well as property, and also reflects the actions of important politically savvy actors. And so in our work, we highlight and focus on non-human agency. Rather than thinking of policy as just a realm of the humans, we also see deer, as well as bacteria, ticks, and vegetation as agents in policy. Their movements and relationships co-create landscapes. They create the need for policy, and they confound management responses. We give attention to the biopolitics of conservation, so the ways that the science and practice of conservation involves decisions about, yes, what gets to live and what's protected, but also what is made to die. Deer management controversies relate to lots of different ethics about who and what should be saved, what is managed, and in what circumstances and why. But those fundamental conversations are often excluded from management deliberations, in part because the rules for evidence-based decision-making and civil decision-making don't leave a lot of space for engaging with these values. And so I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the conversation.